Hello and welcome to a new episode of the BIMvoice podcast. Today's guest is Ralph Montague. I hope I pronounced well your name. Ralph is a director of ArtDocs, a BIM consultancy based in Dublin, Ireland, a board member of the Ireland's National BIM Council, chair of the Irish BIM National Mirror Committee, board member of Construction IT Alliance, coordinator of the Revit Users Ireland group, and co-host of the AAC Hive podcast. Welcome, Ralph. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be with you.
I see you are quite busy from listing all these functions you have, all these jobs you have. Uh, can you present yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit what you do daily. And
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm an architect by profession. I suppose 12 years ago, we decided to move away from architectural design and into BIM consulting. And what we saw at that time was that BIM was just something that was becoming new. I mean, it wasn't new, but obviously it wasn't really that used. So we saw a lot of companies and people that needed help, and we decided to specialize in the area of helping clients and helping designers and helping contractors to embrace BIM as in their projects. And yeah, and I suppose that's what's kept me busy and got me involved in all these different industry groups, is because we're trying to help educate people and help people to embrace this way of working, because we believe strongly that it's going to make a huge difference to the way the construction sector works.
okay, I see. So you've been fighting this battle for a while now, 12 years. That is something, and not necessarily very positive. Like if we think like we would have hoped to get to some level where we might work to more advanced things then, and but it's still a need for clarification on many areas, right? It's still not a complete understanding and embracing of the new techniques, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some companies and some organizations that are well advanced in the use of BIM, but it's fair to say that in general the adoption is still quite low. And I think it hasn't helped that some of the terminology and the discussion about BIM has been, it's almost like a language in its own, and it confuses a lot of people. And so what we try and do is try and simplify it for people, and we try and put it in the context of real projects, and that's what we're doing. We're building buildings, we're building infrastructure. It's the built environment. It's something that's very real to everybody. Every single person, is impacted by the built environment. It's where we live. It's where we work. It's where our children go to school. It's where we care for people. It's where we do our shopping. It's where we go eating and drinking, and everything is involved with the built environment. And we feel strongly that if you have a well-performing built environment, then you have a good society, and if you have a poorly performing built environment, then you have a struggling society. And even in Ireland, where we would probably consider ourselves a first world country, we are struggling. Our construction sector is struggling to meet the demands of society in terms of providing enough housing, providing enough schools, providing enough hospitals, etc. So that's what drives us, I suppose, is to see how can we do things better, how can we improve the performance of the construction sector, and the delivery and the operations of the built environment. And that's where we feel information plays an important part. That it's very difficult to build something without information, or without good information. And it's very difficult to maintain and operate something without good information. Or
Exactly.
yeah. And so we try and talk to people about the quality of information what's good information versus bad information or poor information. So I suppose I would describe poor information as information that's incomplete or late or incorrect, very difficult to work with or difficult to find or query. And then good information is the opposite. It's correct. It's on time. It's easy to work with. And I think most people understand that sort of language. So we're not. So we're talking about information. We're talking about information about the built environment. Um, and then obviously we want to talk about what's the best way to produce and manage information. And this is where we talk about the difference between analog and digital, because traditionally people would have produced analog information, so, written reports, drawings, typed out schedules and things, but it's always printed out and presented as a piece of paper. And which is fine. It's interesting, but it's very difficult to work with a piece of paper. And yourself, if you manage a bank account, you can get your statement of your bank account printed on a piece of paper, and it's useful to have that. But if you want to add up the numbers or do anything, you have to pull it off the piece of paper and into Excel, try and work with it. So it would have been better if the bank had sent you the digital data, because it's just easier to work with and easier to manipulate and calculate and process. And so that's where for us the modeling part, information modeling, for us is more than 3D modeling. It's about producing and managing all the information in a digital way using digital tools. And of course, 3D is part of that, because you are creating a digital representation of buildings and infrastructure. But it's only one part. Like the underlying digital data and all the relevant documentation it's all necessary and all important. So
Yeah, that's a very important distinction there, and that's a fight I also fight myself. But yeah, as you said, the 3D model it's vital. We cannot imagine modeling information, the information about a building without the design, the 3D model that you can use. You can visualize it. You can use it to build the project, right? Or you might even use it in maintenance or operation. But there you need some more advanced kind of data, and it might help just for the visualization more than.
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the podcast? Why did you start the podcast and what it is about?
Yeah, so we started AEC Hive to try and create a community. What we found, just in speaking, myself and my co-founder John Egan, was that innovation in the AEC sector was a little bit dispersed, and it was quite low. I mean, you don't really sort of see a lot of innovation or formal innovation happening. Of course, people are doing innovation on every project, at a project level, but that never seems to, those learnings never seem to come, back into the industry in general. So people finish the project and then they go to the next project, and it has a new set of challenges, and so the learning from the previous project gets forgotten and not disseminated across even across companies, but definitely not across the sector. So we recognize that there were pockets of innovators around the world, but we wanted to connect some of those together and create a community where people who were interested in advancing the AEC sector would feel comfortable to come together and speak and do things together. And so that's what we started AEC Hive for. The reason for the podcast, I suppose, was I think we originally thought we would do events that would bring people together, but obviously this year with COVID, we haven't had a lot of opportunities to do events. So we decided to interview some leading people in the industry and record those interviews, and to as a podcast to have some views. And we've had some fantastic people on the podcast this year. I think we've had about over 15 people just leading in different areas of the AEC sector speak to us. So it's been really interesting and
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
it's very nice and very much needed, I would say, because like you said, the information for our industry is very scattered around. It's very difficult to find. This was one of the reasons I started this podcast myself, because I have so many questions, and I would not find answer, or I would find conflicted answers. And I thought about, if I have this challenge, maybe there are more people having the same challenge. So why not just try doing something about this?
Yeah. And it's fascinating how the technology has opened up the world, and especially since the pandemic
Yeah,
started. I think the connections people have begun to make through digital technologies and video conferencing, and it's fascinating. That you can meet people from different places that you've never met physically, but you can begin to share ideas and spread the message. So
exactly.
we've had a revolution, I think, in the last 6 months
Yeah,
in how digital technologies have opened up the world.
you know, the technology is been there for many years.
Absolutely.
We have been forced ourselves to use it, because we had no choice, right? So I think, in a way, the same problem is with BIM as well, and with BIM adoption across the globe, because we have more advanced technology than we can use, but we just don't do it consistently, or yeah.
Yeah. Well, we saw that with some of the companies we work with. Some companies were very advanced in their use of BIM and remote working and remote collaboration. It's just the way they worked anyway. And when the pandemic came and things began to be locked down, it had very little effect on their business. Other companies who had been avoiding using remote working and um, relied on co-location were suddenly the business stopped for a month, even in some cases, where they just didn't know what to do and they had to get set up and learn these ways of working. So it was a good example to see that those who had adopted digital ways of working were at a clear advantage to those who didn't, in this pandemic. And I think that's going to continue for the foreseeable future anyway. So I think people have to become less dependent on being in the same place all the time, and more agile and resilient by being able to work remotely.
Yeah,
And it's an interesting question, I think, that most people should be asking right now is, when you think about construction, and it's a very physical thing, how much of construction can you do sitting at home? Like that. When you first think of that, you think, well, you can't do any construction sitting at home. But of course, you can do a lot. You can do almost the complete design, sitting at home. You don't
exactly.
have, yeah, you can do all the procurement and planning, and so there's a huge amount of work that you can do remotely. You can also through offsite construction, you can do large elements of work in factories, which can be more controlled environments and safer environments, and where the different trades can work together. So at the same time, in other words, you can have somebody in the factory producing mechanical equipment working at the same time as other people in a different factory producing electrical equipment or other sort of parts of the building, prefabricated structural elements. So suddenly, where previously on site all the work had to be sequential, now you can have that concurrent. So that sort of mindset is even improving the delivery time on projects, and that people only come to site at shortest periods of time when they need to physically assemble or install something. So
Exactly.
so I think that's a fascinating question, and I think companies that are thinking about that are really moving ahead, and other companies who are still trying to think about building buildings in the traditional way, of having lots of people together, are struggling.
Yeah, and it's more effective as well. People do more in this, get less distracted by colleagues or meetings or I don't know, but you have also some more flexibility on your time. You choose, sometimes you can choose when you can work and such, and you work more effectively. It happens for me at least.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I think this pandemic, in some way, as bad as it is, has really opened the floodgates of digital adoption, and so I think we're going to see very rapid change now. We're already seeing that. So
Yes, that's very good.
yeah,
Who won't do it will just default. It's easy.
yeah. So and like adoption has been slow. I think particularly sometimes we feel we've been at this for 12 years, and then you're still having the same conversations with some people, like, why do we have to build this model? And can't we just go to site and start building? We want to get to site as quickly as possible, but is it? We all know that if you go to site with incomplete information that's unresolved, you're going to have the same problems every time. And yeah, so this idea of building the building twice, build it digitally first, do all the resolution and the testing in this digital environment where it's very easy and cheap and safe, makes enormous sense. And
Yeah.
trying to fix things on site, it's the most expensive, most disruptive, most unsafe place to fix things.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. But then again, unfortunately, there are many businesses built exactly around this idea on taking a project with a low price and after that just requiring or yeah, requiring for more money to modify or to fix the mistakes they did in the first place because they did not expect for the building to be designed first.
Yeah, well, I think that's happened because of the poor quality information that's being presented in the first place. So I think people have learned to work with poor information and get the job done over the years. So yeah, and so that's become a business model. So and unfortunately that means people don't value good quality information because they say, well, I don't need good quality information. I can build a building with poor quality. I've been doing that for 20 years. So it has no value, good quality information. Therefore, they don't want to spend time and money sort of improving the quality of information. So that's the education piece. I think you have to educate all the parties, and particularly the clients, the people who are sort of procuring buildings and paying people to do things that they have to they have to basically buy the building twice. They're going to buy it digitally first and check it and make sure it works and then buy it the second time physically. And at first people don't understand that idea. That just in their minds that sounds more expensive and slower, but it's not more expensive. It's actually cheaper.
Well, it can be more expensive because it will require a little bit more design, but it is going to be, the design is going to be more expensive, not the total cost. Of course, you will get cheaper building because you will have planned better, and not only that, then you have much better documentation for operation as well, where it comes the real, kicks in the real saving money part.
Yeah. Well, I don't fully agree that the design will be more expensive. I think you have to produce the information anyway.
Yeah.
You're producing at a different time. So instead of leaving the production of information to a very late period in the process, you're doing that earlier.
Yeah.
So maybe in a period of time it might seem more expensive, but if you look at it overall, it's going to be less expensive. it takes you less time to produce information in BIM than it does to produce information in 2D, for instance. So if I'm describing a building and I've got to describe it in plan, in elevation, in section, in detail, in schedules, so I'm describing that building 6 or 7 times through different methods. It's much quicker to describe that building once in a model, and I can generate plans and elevations if I need them, but the effort of producing the information is in putting it once into the model. And if I need to make a change, I just make the change once in the model. Whereas in the traditional way, if a change had to happen, you had to remember to change all the different drawings and specifications and schedules. So so I don't believe if overall that producing information in BIM is any more expensive or takes longer. But I do agree that in a period of time, you're doing more of the work up front and the coordinating, which you may not have done until much later in the traditional process. So
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking only about well, if the client will require a more advanced model, if the client will require more information, want some information put in the model for the operation phase. From this point of view, it's going to be a little bit more, but let's not forget that the price for the design of the total cost, it's around 10% of this. So when you save, if you do that properly and you get a very small increase there, and you save much more from the entire cost of the project, so then it becomes, of course, irrelevant. So from this point of view, I said, and I had actually on the last podcast, I had a guest, and they have actually designed the longest bridge in Norway that has been designed only as a 3D model, and it's built as without any drawings. It's been awarded by Tekla as the best BIM and infrastructure project, which is really interesting. And he said this, that it's been a little bit more time because of they needed to talk more with the customer and with the builder, with the contractor. But overall, they saved at least 8% or something like that from the total cost, which is huge compared with very small increase. And the small increase is not only because of the more information you need, but it's because it's the infant steps we are doing. It's the first time we are doing it, right? We are not used with this kind of process, right? And after the designers are getting better and better, it becomes the new normal. Then you might end up, of course, not having a higher price for the design anyway.
yeah, well, I suppose I always like to put things in context because I mean, there's the overall price of
Yeah.
the project, and traditional projects are always over time, over budget, and
Yeah, I know.
like 70%. It's a very high figure of projects are over time and over budget. And in that context, if you can reduce the time and reduce the cost overruns by anything, it will pale in significance to any increase in design cost.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm still saying if you've got to look at the overall thing, not just focus on
Of course.
the
And that's the
design cost,
problem.
because the design cost is is something that has to happen anyway.
Yeah.
Like even you mentioned there, capturing information about operations like that was always a requirement. Like you under the health and safety regulations, you always had to provide information of how to operate and maintain the building. So there's nothing new. You're just asking for that information to be provided in a digital way rather than a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So you're not asking for new information, you're just asking for a different format of information. Now, for some designers, they think, well, that's new.
Yeah, exactly. From the way they must deliver it, and it might take some while to get accustomed to.
Yeah. I also think there's a lot of confusion. People think that BIM changes the relationship between designers and contractors, and that designers should be doing more. I don't Personally, I don't think that's correct. Like, designers have a function which is to describe the design intent. It's not the designer's job to tell you how to construct a building, because they're not builders. So the designer describes the design intent, and the contractors, who are the people that have the knowledge of how to construct and build, must describe the construction method, if you like. The means and methods of how to
Yeah.
construct a building, and capture, as they're choosing materials and pieces of equipment, and purchasing those from suppliers. That's at that time they must collect all the digital information relevant for operations. So you're not asking designers to do work that other people are meant to do. Designers must continue to do the work they're meant to do, which is describe the design intent. And I think a lot of people forget about that difference between design intent and construction, which always
Yes.
existed. So we had design drawings and we had shop drawings in the old days.
Yeah.
And and I think people have forgotten that. Somehow they got mixed up. That contractors have to produce the fabrication information.
But let me ask you something regarding this, because wouldn't this mean that we need to model the building twice, right? The designer is supposed to model it and for design purpose, right, and for build purpose. Wouldn't become more effective if we somehow, if the builder would work in a way with the designer, providing the information the designer needs, because the designer, let's say, it has better experience with making the 3D modeling, right? They have more advanced techniques. They use parametric design and such things, right? Let's say, wouldn't we end up with saving some time here, or some money, if we would combine, like if the contractor will work closer with the designer from this point of view?
Absolutely, and that's why the procurement method is so important. Like traditional procurement, the design was completed to a stage, and then you went out and you tried to find contractors, get a price from different contractors. So contractors were being appointed quite late in the design stage, and even their subcontractors. You first go get a price from the main contractor, and then they start tendering out the subcontracts. And so it can be very late, when, let's say, you're an electrical installer. You can come to the project at a very late stage and have no input, because everything's been decided.
Too late, yeah.
And even though you're the expert on electrical systems, you don't have the opportunity to give any real input that would improve the design. So any type of procurement method that allows the contractors to be appointed earlier would definitely help the situation, and avoid this where you're producing the information 2 or 3 times. So I mean, there's lots of different procurement methods, but I suppose the one that gives the best opportunity is what they call alliancing contracts, or IPD, integrated project delivery, where effectively everybody is appointed to the team before any design has occurred. So the contractor is part of the team, and the subcontractors and the specialists, they're all appointed to the team before the design starts, and they can work together to develop the design collaboratively. Um, that's been around for a long time. IPD, or alliancing, has been around for 10 years, but people, because it's so new, people don't do that. They tend to do what they always did, which is the traditional contracts, where they do a design up to a point, and then get the contractors in at a very late stage. So what this needs, that means that the problem here isn't technology or BIM. The problem is how people procure, so
Processes.
the
Yeah.
process, and the trust. Obviously in IPD you need to trust the companies you're working with, because you're signing a contract with them without any design, just based on previous experience and previous working knowledge of these companies. So you're forming a multi-party partnership, where you actually have to work together, rather than this is us against them kind of. Traditional contracts are very adversarial. That's
Exactly.
yeah. So everybody is fighting against each other.
This is not helping BIM at all. This is not helping us as an industry at all, fighting each other instead of working together.
Well, as you said, some companies have actually learned to make a business out of fighting each other. So that's how they make money, is by signing contracts and then fighting to make more money. And so then
Exactly, exactly.
they've become quite good at that. Yeah, that's a business model.
But how do we avoid this? The customer, the client, has only to lose from this. Why are not they more willing to implement this kind of contracts?
Well, I think it comes to the professional advice that clients get. I mean, we must remember that many clients are not in the business of building. I mean, there are some like developers who do multiple projects and things, but most clients are not in the business of building. They're in another business. You're a financer or a retailer, so your business isn't building. So, and you come to a professional team and you ask for advice. And personally, I think the professionals out there are not giving the clients the best advice. And often the professionals that are involved at the early stages of the project, like the project managers and maybe the finances and the solicitors, at that very early stage, none of them understand BIM, none of them understand procurement methods, and they're just basically giving them 20-year-old advice. And that sets the rules before you. And sometimes it's even the architects and engineers aren't on board yet. And the rules have been set now. This is how we're going to procure this building, and it's in the traditional fashion. And then when the architects and engineers come on board, those rules are already set, and you have no way to influence the client. So that's, I think, the sad part is the professionals out there are not giving clients the best advice. So I always think of when you go to a doctor, let's say you're sick, like the doctor doesn't expect you as the patient to tell him how to do his job. Like it's the other way around. Like
Yeah.
he's the professional, and you want a doctor who knows about the best and the most latest technology when it comes to diagnosis and treatment of your disease. You don't want the guy who studied 50 years ago and never bothered to read a medical book since. So you want to go to get the best professional advice. So and that's what I would say for clients. You need to start asking for the best professional advice from people who are up to date with what the best procurement methods are, with what the best technologies are, the best processes, how to select the best teams. And those are the projects that are really flying and doing really well, like the one you described there. Where they know how to bring the right people together at the right time and get the best results. It's all about outcomes, focused on results and performance and outcomes, rather than this just doing things the way we did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's what we see. Like most projects, unfortunately, often when we get called in is also at a very late stage, and we see the project is it's on a track of a traditional design, bid, build, and you just know it's going to be difficult. Everybody knows. Like everybody, it's not a secret. Everybody knows that the traditional way of procuring buildings doesn't work, and it results in buildings that are costly and slow to deliver, and the performance and quality of buildings is poor, and the working environment for people is unsafe. These are not secrets. Like everybody knows that.
It's so sad. It's so sad to acknowledge this. Jesus.
Yeah, and it comes down to professional. And I actually, it's one of the things that it irritates me a little bit is when I talk to other professionals, and they say, "Oh, but my client didn't want BIM, or my client didn't want to do this." And I say, "Well, what? You're the professional. Like, what advice are you giving your client? Or, you're an architect. You're a project manager. You're a quantity surveyor. Like, you're the professional. Like, you should be giving your client the best advice that will achieve the best outcomes, not just accepting, just because your client didn't understand. Going back to my example of the doctor, if I had told my doctor, look, I've got this cancer or something, but I want you to use this treatment, that would be stupid, because I don't know what the best treatment is. um, you want the doctor to say, I've been researching the latest treatment, and this is what you should be looking at.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so
So I
true.
think professionals have forgotten how to be professional in the environment.
Yes, or they are very comfortable with the way they are doing things, and it's a very big resistance to move from traditional way of working.
I can't believe they're comfortable. Like, the working environment in traditional way of working is not comfortable at all. It's terrible. You're always firefighting. You're always under pressure. You're always trying to catch up. It's not a nice environment. I can't believe people are comfortable in that environment. Maybe a few senior people are comfortable because their companies are making some money, but everybody in those companies is just working long hours, redoing work over and over again, firefighting, writing lots of letters, in this adversarial game of, a lot of contract administration, trying to cover yourself and also put yourself in a legal position. Yeah, I can't see how that would be comfortable. Not for me
No,
anyway.
when I say comfortable, I mean like we people, it's very difficult to change, right? To grow from what we are doing. Most of us, we are comfortable with the way things go in our lives, right?
Yeah,
So if you want to grow yourself, you need to study a lot first. You need to look around for better solutions and invest a lot of time. This is going to have an impact in your life, of course, right? So from this perspective, I'm thinking like they are in their comfort zone. Not that it's nice the working environment and such, but I mean from a growing perspective, like growth mindset, if you can say it.
yeah. No, I agree with you. And look, change is difficult for anybody. Um, but I think you have to step back a little bit and think about why change would be good for you, and what are you gonna benefit out of it. So you have to, I know everybody's busy and in a rush, but you have to just stop for a minute and say, you know, here's a vision of a different way of working where we are delivering real value, but without all the pressure and the negative stuff and the duplication of work. And so you could halve your work load by not doing like the work twice. Like, we see that so often. People will do something just to get it done today, knowing full well it's wrong and they're going to have to redo it tomorrow. They know that already, but they do it just because somebody said you have to have it done today. Um, and so
That's so wrong.
yeah, but it happens everywhere. Like, people are just producing information just to get it out, just to have something there, knowing it's wrong. Like, instead of trying to saying, let's just do it right the first time, and not have to do it again. That you could, if you had that attitude, you would halve your workload straight away, and have more time and less pressure, and things would go much better. So you have to have a vision, I suppose, of what a different way of working would be. You have to understand the personal incentive that a new way of working would bring to you as a person. Because if it's not going to make your life better, then you're not going to change. So I think people have to think about the what's in it for me. How's this going to make my life better? Obviously, you need some skills that you have to acquire. You need some resources like money, time, computers, software. So if you're not in an environment where you've been given those things, then that's also difficult. But change doesn't happen by itself, by accident. You're just going to wake up one day and change has happened. So it's deliberate. Change is something you have to pursue with a deliberate intent. But it's actually, once you've done that, it's quite easy. Once you've figured out why you must do it, how it's going to make your life better, what resources and skills you need. It's actually pretty easy to do, and it's significant. I mean, just going from 2D drafting, for instance, to BIM, would halve your workload, because you're not describing buildings in plans and elevations and sections, and and every time someone says that, oh, we decided we're going to change something, you're like, I've got to go and change the plan, I've got to go change the elevation, you know. So just working in BIM already just takes all that nonsense away. You just put it in once, and if you want to change it, you change it once. That's it. So I think if people got that part, um,
They don't believe yet, maybe. They don't believe still in this.
yeah, because they haven't experienced it. So and I suppose that's where, as like in my previous role as an architect, that's how we started. I mean, we started this working in BIM. It wasn't called BIM then. We were just using software to produce drawings, but we were doing it through 3D models, just because it was quicker to produce the model and get the drawings out. So nobody was asking us for the model, but that was the way we were working as a way to improve it. So so I can speak to people from my experience as an architect of this is a better way of producing information. Even it must be 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Before it became a thing that people spoke about. And but people have to experience it, and then getting there is the trick, because obviously there's a period, let's call it a learning period, where actually your productivity is going to go down from
Yeah.
what you're doing now, because you have to
Learn.
take time, you have to time out, you've got to go and do some training, you've got to practice, so there's a period you just have to work through. It's not a long period, actually. I would say for most people it's probably 2 or 3 months. um, and you just have to accept that I have to get through this period. But after 6 months to a year, you're just working in a completely different way, and it's a lot more fun. Particularly for designers, you can spend more time thinking about the design rather than doing sort of tedious and mundane tasks of producing outputs and fixing outputs.
Yeah.
So you can focus your time on the thing that you're good at. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not all bad and hopeless, but it's slowly. It's happening slowly. Like I said, in Norway now we come to around over 100 projects that has been built without drawings. There are these public agencies, Norwegian Public Road Administration and Infrastructure, Railroad Administration, and Building Administration. They are coming with better, with very clear requirements, and they start now most of their projects, if not all, without not requiring drawings anymore. So this is a very big step. It's something very important, I think, and I'm
Yeah.
really lucky to be here and witness this. But it's still like, if Norway is a small country and people try to work together if they get the chance, right? So I really hope this is going to become a pandemic across the world as well, because I see this as the next step for us to elevate ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. And I think the Scandinavian countries have been quite progressive in this area. And maybe, unfortunately, maybe it's a language thing. It's just all the great stuff that's happening in the Scandinavian countries doesn't get out to the world, if you like. Um, but yeah, I think some significant things have happened in the last few years, which are accelerating change. I mean, I think the adoption of standards has been a very good driver. The fact that the CEN, the European Standardization Committee, have set up a group that looks at BIM standards now, and they've adopted the ISO standards for IFC and various other things.
Yeah.
That they've got the process standard now, the ISO 19650. Yeah, that's been accepted. It's an international standard. And I really believe standardization is a big part to play, because particularly in Ireland, I'm sure it's pretty much the same in every country. The industry is so fragmented. There's so many little companies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in Ireland, I'd say 90% of companies operating in construction are less than 10 people. So they're
Wow.
micro enterprises. I mean, obviously, you have the big companies, but a lot of companies are small companies. And for a small company, if you have to do something different every time, it's very expensive, and it's, you know, you have to learn something new each time you do your work, and that's not helping. We need consistency in the way we produce information and manage information, and that's where the standards are coming into play. So I think if the clients can adopt standards, then by the time you get down to the little companies at the bottom, who are
Yeah.
the people who are actually doing the work, at least they can be doing the same thing each time, and that way you're developing a sort of a repetitive way of working, you know, and some consistency, and you know that just means the quality will improve. So I'm very excited. Obviously I have a thing about standards, but I'm excited that this is now an international standard, a European standard. It's adopted across Europe. Like one of the things under European regulations is if you have a competing standard, you have to let go of that and you have to adopt. But we didn't have a standard in Ireland, so that's fine. So now we have an Irish standard that is a European standard and an international standard. We have one way of organizing and digitizing the information about buildings and infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean everybody's following that way yet. So it's not a regulation to follow the standard. So standards are still mandatory, but this is where the education comes in. That we need to teach people firstly why standards are important. You know, and the idea is that this consistency of way of working will reduce the costs, will improve the quality. You know, it will reduce the time, and so there's real benefits to following standards for companies, and that we just need to educate people about that, and
Yeah, I completely agree.
and then everybody knows what to expect. You know, so if you know this project is following ISO 19650 Part 2, yeah, I know what to expect. I know what's required from the client. I know what's required from the lead appointed party, you know, the designers, the contractors, and even if I'm playing a small part in this project at the bottom, yeah, I know what my part is and how it's going to feed into the bigger picture. So I think that's been significant since 2018 when that came out. That's accelerating change. It's people are struggling with that as well because they've obviously developed their own way of working over 10, 20 years, and you know, suddenly they're being told that you can't do it your way anymore. You have to do it this way. And
Yeah, well,
but yeah, I think the people who are not sort of tied to their own way of working and are willing to accept international standards are moving ahead fast. Those who are saying, yeah, I'm heavily invested in my way of working and I'm not changing, are struggling.
yeah, yeah, and is no guarantee if they won't try to learn themselves out of the situation, they may just stop existing, or their business won't be able to sustain itself.
Yeah. But I think what's also exciting for countries and companies with the standards now is it's opening up the market. So, you know, you can work in different countries in Europe, yeah, in a standardized way.
Yeah,
So you're not, yeah, so you're not suddenly you're not sort of located to a geographic region anymore. You can work
that's
with
huge.
people, yeah. So, and that's a big driver in Europe. The European Commission, you know, are pushing the digital single market, which is really important. So for countries, because you know each country will have ups and downs in terms of supply and demand, and yeah, you can't rely totally on always being busy just in your market. So
Yeah, sure. I completely agree. regarding standards, they are vital. I don't see any other way we can agree and push us to go further, because otherwise you just have no rule. You just everybody does what he wants or she wants.
Yeah.
I see though I have some problems with the standards, and one of them is access to them, especially when you put it like, if you have a majority of small companies, they are expensive for small companies. Personal opinion, nobody told me this, but I don't like that. I think there are ways to make it more accessible. For there are other industries where you have other business models. I think the business model, it's limiting the adoption of them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a difficult one because obviously a lot of work goes into developing standards. I mean, it's years of work.
Of course.
Yeah. And so I do understand that the standards have some value in some monetary value. I'm just like a standard. If you're in a business and this is your core business,
Yeah.
in that context, like paying for 100 euros or 200 euros for a standard that's going to sort of dictate how your business flourishes and does better, it doesn't sound like a lot to me, because if you go out for a night in a restaurant, if you can't do that anymore, you could easily spend 100 euros, 200 euros on a night out with some friends
Yeah.
for one night, and that just sustains you for one night. Whereas, you're talking about something that's going to dictate the way your business works for the next 5-10 years. Um, that's I think that doesn't sound like a lot of money to me. But I think there are ways that it could be better. I think, for instance, maybe the governments of certain countries, if they felt strongly that this was going to help their sector, could sponsor the standard. So, I mean, we've seen examples in the UK with the previous PAS standards where the government sponsored the standard, and that allowed the standard to be distributed to the market. But that means you need a government who feels strongly that this is going to
Yeah.
help. I think it's a sad thing, particularly in our country, but I'm sure it applies elsewhere, where people at the high level in government just make a decision. So, like, you will follow this standard,
Yeah.
but the responsibility is left to the small little companies of 5 or
Exactly.
10 people to figure it out. And it's not a great way of working. I've seen some examples. It was a brilliant example in France, actually, where the Department of Housing um, decided to take on an initiative to help the sector by producing some standards and objects around housing and making that available to the market, to allow them to
Yeah.
to participate in BIM for housing in an easier way. So that's a very kind of a socialist thing to do, for the government to say, we're not going to make you figure it out, we'll help you. Whereas in other countries, they're probably less socialist, and they just say, look, it's your problem, get on with it. Yeah.
What happened with that? What happened with that initiative? It failed?
I haven't followed it up, but I don't believe it failed. The last I heard about it was they had produced a suite of objects, generic objects for housing. They had also given those objects to all the product manufacturers that were developing products for housing, and they allowed them to enhance them further and make them manufactured products, and then
Yeah.
pull them back into a server, which then they could give access to all the architects and engineers and contractors in little towns around France to.
That sounds a lot like open source.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really good example of, they had a housing problem, and they said, well, instead of trying to force the little people to solve the problem, we'll help. We'll form part
Yeah.
of this, so I must actually follow it up, but to see what happened. But
Yeah.
just what the approach they had was really good, where a government who had a serious problem was taking an initiative to help the industry. And I think with standards, I think if the governments of Europe felt strongly that adopting these standards would improve the economies in the construction sectors for their countries, and then maybe they could help, could think about the little people and help and say, we'll sponsor the access to the standards.
But they need to be informed. They need to be taught that there is a need for this, right? And of course, one standard, it's one standard. It's 100 euros, as you said. But you, a person, an engineer, let's say, you need the design codes. You have 5. If you want this BIM, you have 2, and it adds up quickly to 10 or 20. So if you need that for one person, for one employee, and if you have 10, then you come up with pretty big numbers. From this point of view, big companies, it's easy. Of course, they can they are very they can afford this easily. And but I mean, like for the small, let's say 1 or 2 or 3 up to 5 people in a company. From this point of view, I know it should not be a problem, but if you make a poll and you ask around if you really have all the standards, they might have them from the old company they work in. And I just mean, like, they should not maybe change everything, but they should have more accessible maybe plans for other for different tiers maybe of companies. I don't know. It's just something I'm thinking about. Me myself as a own consultancy, I'm not very happy to go and pay around 20,000 euros for all the standards I will need.
Yeah, it is difficult, and I agree with you. I think that the business model needs to be rethought. I mean, of course, these organizations like ISO and CEN and all the national standards authorities are businesses in themselves. In other words, they they pay their staff, and they have to run those businesses. So yeah, I'm sure there's a happy medium somewhere. But look, I think if you're serious about what you're doing, and if you're committed to working in this way, then I think you'll
have
see
no
the
choice.
value. Yeah. Well, so I'm just using that example of going out to dinner. I mean, like so spending 100 euros, on a dinner, or spending 100 euros on something that's going to sort of put your business at a different level compared to your competitors. So if all your competitors are not following the standards and you following the standards, that makes you different. It makes you more attractive to other companies who want to follow those standards.
Opens more opportunities, of course.
Yeah, so there is value in it, and I think, like, if you look at what the UK are doing with the UK BIM Alliance, or BIM, and the UK BIM framework, what they've done is a group of them have also produced some excellent sort of supporting guidance documents, and all of those are for free. And you could say, well, if you follow those, you would be following the standard without having purchased the standard. Although it's always useful to go back to the standard, particularly when people are having arguments, and people are inventing terminology.
Of course.
That term doesn't actually mean anything. You just made that up. Yes, this is what it says in the standard. So but we see there's been lots of hard conversations around the standards, because people are sort of clashing against the standard now because they have their own way of thinking and their own way of working, and so, and they have to change, and they don't like that because some people are heavily invested in the way they work, and the systems and processes that they've set up for themselves, which are now in conflict to the standards. So they still want to do things the old way, and you have to continuously remind them that this is the standard now, and we only have one standard in our country or in Europe, or to progress the way we organize and digitize the information about buildings. So
Yeah, sure, definitely. Just a last note regarding this. So my point is just the standards should not limit people to have to become better, to drive better their business. This is the only point. So maybe I don't know. I like a lot open source in this mindset of open information, and I'm thinking if this is working for other industries, should work for us as well. But
yeah,
I don't have a better advice for this. It's just my personal humble opinion. So yeah,
yeah. Well, I often use the example of the internet, because the internet is something that works incredibly well because of a standard. HTML is a standard, and as somebody who uses the internet, like, I don't need to purchase the standard for HTML and read it
yeah, sure,
because the people who've designed the websites that I go to
yeah,
and
but
built
that's
those
free.
websites are following the standards. Yeah, and even sometimes those people haven't purchased the standard because they're using frameworks that have been designed by another group of people but somebody somewhere along the line has said, this is the standard, and if you want your web page to work on these browsers, it has to follow the standard, otherwise it's not going to work. So somebody along the line has to purchase the standard and follow the standard, um, but it doesn't have to be each individual user of the internet. So I
Yeah,
think in the
sure.
same way in construction, I don't think it has to be each individual person in the construction industry has to purchase the standard. The right people who are designing the software or designing the processes, etc., have to follow those standards. But if they've done their job correctly, then the software and the processes that they've set in place will allow other people to be compliant with the standard without even knowing. Like, when I use the internet, I don't know why it's working or how it's working. But I know there's a standard behind it that makes it work,
Yeah,
and and it works. It works really well because
yeah.
people have followed the standard when creating websites and web pages, etc.
But the problem is HTML is free. Everything is free out there for everybody. Even if you don't know how it works, you can learn anytime and use it for free.
Well, I think the ISO standard must be, you must have, somebody must have purchased it or sponsored it.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, it didn't just come about for free. A lot of people put a lot of effort in.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't
I
know
think
exactly.
we can have a long discussion, but
Yeah.
I think the point about standards is consistency. We need a consistent way of working for companies. So it doesn't matter if you're working in Ireland or Norway or France or,
Yeah.
that we're working in a consistent way and it's the same way each time. So I don't have to invent a new way on each project because that's expensive and that takes time, and it also creates potential for problems. If you have a new way on each project, it's exposing that project to potential problems. So and I think that's what people need to get is it's a consistent way of working that's saving time, it's saving money, it's opening up the market, it's opening up opportunity. And like in Europe, I suppose we have a particular problem in that labor in Europe is quite expensive compared to the rest of the world. So we have to find, if you're in Europe, either you have to take a significant pay cut to get your labor rates down, which I don't think anybody wants, or you have to find ways to work smarter, to be more productive. And
Yes.
I think that's what's driving this initiative across Europe, this digital single market, is to become more productive, to improve the way the construction and built environment sector works, because it needs improvement. Like, there's no doubt buildings are too slow, too expensive. Environmentally, the construction industry is contributing, up to 40% of CO2. Like, it's not great. It's the industry.
Horrible.
It's quite unsafe. A lot of people are getting hurt and killed, and it's not very attractive. In its current format to young people. So the sector is not attracting young people, because who wants to go and work in that environment where everybody's fighting with each other and using
Exactly.
outdated technologies and and contributing such environmental impact. And so we need to change all of that. And I think digitization is offering that opportunity to improve the way we work, to reduce the time, to reduce the cost, to test these digital models for performance, calculating carbon, before you build it. And don't build a building and then test it, because that's too late. Like, design it, test it, analyze it, make
That
sure.
makes sense.
Yeah. And that's this idea of building the building twice. That's what we always try and get across to our clients, that it's not a waste of time to build the building twice. It's not going to cost you more money to build the building twice. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you money. You're going to have a much better quality building because you've resolved everything in this digital environment. You've tested it. You've costed it. You've done everything you can, and then all you're doing is you're executing the work on site at
Yeah.
a later stage. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfectly sense.
And that also becomes attractive to young people, because
Yeah.
now suddenly, if you think about that, so much time can be spent in that digital environment, and that's what's cool for the young people. It's like, they want to get into the technology, and that's where they want to spend their time in the technology, and this allows them to do that. So suddenly it becomes attractive. And if you're a young person, if your choice is to go make a video game or to go and build the built environment, well, this is exciting because it's real.
Yeah.
You're contributing to something that impacts everybody. The housing, the schools, that's uh, much more exciting than building a game
Yeah.
or website or something.
That's very true and very true. And like I see now, I've seen some ads or some jobs here in Norway requiring gaming experience. Just think
Yeah,
about that. It's a blessing for a lot of youngsters because like working with VR and AR and these new technologies, it requires you to be very familiar with the digital world, and it's really cool.
yeah. Like, we haven't seen yet, a project that's fully completed in the digital environment before they build it on site. They're always trying to catch up.
Okay.
So even though we say to people, like, you must complete it in this digital environment first, and resolve all the problems there before you go to site, we're still seeing, that the two are out of sync, and in some cases, work is happening on site before they've even finished the work in the model, which is crazy.
Don't don't say that. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
it's a reality.
yeah. So we still, even though in theory, we know what we have to do, we're still getting the sequence wrong. So, but I think that's changing, and I think as people are beginning to realize, like, it's a waste of time to go do a half a model, go to site, finish it on site, and then come back and try and fix up the model. I mean, it's useful that the model then is available for operations, but it hasn't really brought any value during the construction in terms of resolving issues. And so,
Yeah, we must keep doing that. We must keep talking about this. I think this is very
yeah,
important. Is the first thing, and after that, try to raise awareness about this, and people might start becoming more interested and look into it more and try it after that on their project. So I
yeah.
think this is very important.
I think the AR and VR you mentioned there,
Yeah,
that allows people to spend more time in the digital model in different ways, engage with the model, and if you were an experienced person, maybe you're older and you're not comfortable with technology, but you have the experience. Like, if you're an experienced person, you walk around a building inside, you immediately pick up problems.
exactly.
So you got to get those people who have the experience into the model and let them look around, and they'll tell you, oh, that's not going to work. That's the problem, you know, and and so we got to get the older generation
Yeah,
to engage with these technologies, and even people who are coming close to retirement. You could be using their knowledge to educate younger people through AR, VR, where somebody, an older person, might sit in an office, but be able to walk around with a young person who's on site with maybe some goggles on, and sharing experiences with that person without physically having to be with them there. And so all these things with this new pandemic as well. It means
yeah.
people with experience can sit in offices through technology, but engage with other people on site.
Yeah, these are very good points, actually. Yeah, enabling people with experience, just give them new powers and
Yeah,
to use their experience. Yeah, those are very good points.
yeah. Particularly if you're coming, let's say you're 5 years away from retirement, you're probably physically not comfortable walking around a building site all day long. Yeah. So, but you got all the knowledge in your head, and somehow you got to impart that knowledge to the younger generation. So I think technologies can begin to make those connections. Uh,
Yeah,
and one person sitting at a desk might be able to work with 10 people, 10 different people on different sites, uh, through the technology. So they could have, during a day, 10 meetings from one location, instead of driving to 10 different sites.
yeah, exactly. Having only one meeting in a day, of course,
Yeah, yeah. So
it makes sense.
lots of ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. Regarding BIM, you said something earlier about the architect that the client told him they don't want to use BIM on their projects. Let's do an exercise. Imagine I am that customer. I heard BIM, a lot of people buzzing around BIM. Maybe I don't understand exactly what BIM is. I know it's a 3D model, but I don't know too much about it. So for a beginner, from a beginner perspective, tell me what is BIM, what should I understand that BIM is, and why should I use BIM on my project?
Well, we normally start that conversation with, like, what do you want to achieve on this project? You know, you want to build a building, and you want to understand what that building is going to be before it's built. You don't want to build a building and then figure out that was wrong. Okay, so you want to understand the scope of the work. You want to understand what it's going to cost you. So cost is important. So not pretend like it's going to be 1 million, but actually it turns out to be 2 million. You want sort of some certainty around the cost. You want to know when it's going to be delivered, in time, and how that's going to be done logistically, if it's a difficult site, etc. And you want to know the quality, because buildings are expensive things. And once it's built, it's very difficult to unbuild it and fix it if it's not the quality you wanted. It's So these are the things that are important to clients. Not BIM. Like, but where BIM feeds into all those things is BIM allows them to understand the scope. The fact that you can take your client into this virtual environment and they can see exactly what's going to be built and is it going to suit them. And if they want to make a change, that's the time to make a change before you've built it. It's no good walking around the building with the client. He said, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want this change, because that's too expensive. So the BIM helps them understand the scope. The connecting the model to a construction program and looking at the sequence in time of how it's going to come together logistically, how you're going to do that safely, gives them an understanding of the time. The fact that you can extract quantities and do more accurate measurements gives them a much better understanding of the cost. The fact that you can analyze this building from an energy point of view, from a carbon point of view, from a structural stability point of view, if you're in a seismic region or something like that, gives them much more comfort in the quality. And the last thing is that as you're working through the traditional design process, you're gathering digital data, which is going to become a database that's going to be useful for your ongoing operations, in the future, for the next 10, 20 years, instead of having a room full of files or boxes of paper. So that's how we explain it to clients. Like, it's touching on everything that's important to you, but it doesn't happen by accident. You, as the client, have to tell your team that this is the way you want to work, that you want them to construct this building digitally first, to sort it out, resolve it, get a really good idea of the costs, get a really good idea of the delivery mechanism and the logistics, etc. Test the quality for you in this digital environment, and allow you as the client to come into this digital environment and see what they're proposing before they go and build it. Because if you
Yeah,
don't tell your team to do that, then they're not going to do that. They're going to go back to what they did 20 years ago, drawings, and which you as a client are not going to understand anyway, because most clients don't understand drawings.
it's very difficult.
They're looking at a drawing and it's just white paper with lots of black lines, and like, what is it? I don't know what it is. And that's why you get a lot of changes on site, because the first time the client really understands what they're getting is when you're walking around the site. Oh, is that what it looks like? No, I didn't want that. So so once you've explained to clients that all those benefits and how BIM's going to help them get what they want, then then it's up to them to to set the rules, to talk to their professional team and say, this is the way we want to work. We want to save time, we want to save money, we want to get a good quality building, we don't want to kill anyone, and we don't want to have a huge impact on the environment.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
that
that.
sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, and BIM opens that up for us. It enables, for us, BIM is just an enabler. It's a technology, is an enabler to better design, better construction, better processes. But yeah, the client has an important role, because like the biggest excuse you ask anybody, why aren't you doing BIM? Like, BIM has been around for 30 years or more. Like, why aren't you doing it? The number one reason everybody says is, my client doesn't want it. Didn't ask us to do it.
Or it's too expensive.
Well, that's a lie. That's based on a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah, of course.
it's not more expensive. It's less expensive. Like, overall, like, it might be more expensive in a short period, but overall it's saving money. There's lots of reports to say that BIM saves, lots of, that some of the reports are 10 to 20% of the cost, 10 to 20% of the time on a project. So there's, if you can read, and you can read a report, there's enough proof there for many years to demonstrate that. But those savings won't happen if you try and implement BIM, in a traditional way, where you say, we're not going to do the work up front. We're going to always push the problem down the road. And yeah, we've had a project where the client wanted BIM. The process was all put in place. The contractor decided they're not going to use BIM to build the building, but when they finish the building, what they'll do is they'll take all the drawings and send them to China, and they'll create a BIM afterwards and give it to the client, because that's what the client wanted. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
uh, and the client didn't. We only found that out because we asked the right questions. Like, where's the model? No, we're not producing the model now. Yeah, and so the client didn't understand that that's what they were getting until we came in there and exposed that. And what
Wow.
it meant was they were going to get their BIM at the end, but they weren't going to get any of the potential savings and all those benefits I just spoke about for the construction. So it's really important that clients understand these things and know what's being offered, and that's where there's a lot of education to happen. Yeah, unfortunately, and the professional. This is also my, as I said earlier, I have this little thing, but I don't believe the professional team that the client is hiring is helping the client if they allowed that to happen, because the architects and engineers that the client hired should have also picked that out. Yeah, and they allowed that to happen. And so in that instance, they were not, they were not looking after the interests of their client. and in my view, that's not being professional. Like being professional, it's like a doctor who doesn't give you the right treatment, and you don't get better. Like that's unprofessional. You could sue that doctor for being unprofessional. Or if you go to a lawyer for some legal advice and they don't give you the right legal advice, and you lose money or end up in jail or something, that's unprofessional. And it's I think we've forgotten how to be professional in the built environment, and we just allow people to do unprofessional things.
Yeah, yeah, I cannot argue against that. That's true.
Coming back to your question, like how would I explain BIM? I mean, we explain it as a digital representation of a built thing, like a building or a bridge, or so and that digital representation for us is three things. There's geometry, so you have to describe the building in its form, the shape, the size. So that definitely 3D is part of it, because that's the only way to describe a physical thing, is through describing its form and its location in space, etc.
Yes.
But there's also the second part is the information, the properties or attributes of information that you need for all the calculations on costs, on energy, on performance, fire rating. So all that useful information in a digital format that you can analyze and work with, rather than in a paper format. But then you still are required under law to have documentation. So if you're going to install a particular material or product into a building, you have to make sure it has a CE mark, it has a declaration of performance, it's been tested, and it has a test certificate, etc. So that kind of stuff is still documentation. You're not going to digitize all of that as in a database. So it's the digital representation for us is three things. It's the 3D geometry, the information, and all the documentation held in a common data environment. So there's one place you can go to look for stuff. Yeah. And that data is organized and it's managed. We know who approved it, we know who accepted it, etc. And so that's how we describe them.
That sounds as a very good description and very complete.
Yeah.
You did not miss any of the aspects. So that's very important. That's something that helps against the misunderstanding and the limitation of BIM actually.
Yeah. And when you come back to, as I said, the things that are important to clients, like if you want to measure cost, it's very difficult to measure cost with traditional drawings and things, because you have to do manual takeoffs, and you want ways that you can extract data very quickly to process it.
Exactly.
If you want to look at program or time or logistics, you need to do that in a quick way. Otherwise, you're only going to do it once. If you want to do energy analysis or carbon analysis or anything like that, you need to extract that data pretty quickly and do it on a regular basis, rather than just do it once. I think that's where problems occurred in previous projects. They would only measure costs once, because it took so long to measure the cost that you'd only do it once when before you go to tender, and maybe the contractor would do it once, and then maybe at the end you'd try and recalculate. So, but working with digital data, we can do that every week if we like. We can extract costs, so we can have much better control. So working with digital data versus analog data it's on a different level completely. It's not like it's slightly better. It's
huge difference. It's a paradigm shift. It's just it's a paradigm shift.
And so we're trying to help our clients understand the difference between digital versus analog, and that's where we want to say that this is not like a slight improvement in the way your projects work. It can be huge, like complete different mindset to how people sort of work through a project, if they want, if they're willing to participate. Sometimes they're not all willing, and you have to have good contracts and good good things in place to make sure people do what they do. One thing we haven't seen a lot of, but this is obviously as consultants, this is where we feel we bring value to clients, is we kind of act like a referee. Like if you have a game of football or rugby, both teams can understand the rules, but if you don't have the referee, they'll try and break the rules. So, and what makes the game exciting is having the referee who's checking that everybody's playing by the rules.
Yeah.
And so what we try as consultants when we're working for the clients is to sort of act like the referee, to make sure that people aren't trying to pull the wool over their eyes of the client.
Yeah, that sounds very nice.
That contractor who tried to just do the project as normal and deliver BIM at the end.
Was there any consequence, if I may ask? Did they got penalized for that, or?
Well, they didn't get penalized, but they had to catch up earlier. They had to resolve that issue because that's not what the client had asked for. So,
and it was not at the end of the project. You did not find this at the end of the project. It was during the project.
No. Yeah, and fortunately enough, it was early on. I mean, they had already constructed the structure, but they hadn't progressed all the facades and finishes yet. So they still could get some benefit, but it's strange what some people are trying to do. Yeah, and it's not that they didn't know what they were doing; they knew exactly what they were doing. They just thought they could get away with it, because nobody was checking. And so I think that's the value of having somebody who's checking, on the project.
Yeah, if the client doesn't have the competency or the people that have experience with this, just hire somebody, because you might save lots of money there.
Yeah. Well, you could say the professional team should have been checking, but that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I think a lot of the professional team aren't being professional anymore. They're not looking after their clients' interests. If they allowed something like that to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you work only with Irish companies, or only in Ireland, or do you have customers outside as well?
We work mostly with Irish companies. We've worked on projects outside of Ireland, but for Irish companies that are working outside of Ireland. So, yeah, I suppose we're not a big company, but we have enough to do in Ireland. There's enough people to educate and to help to keep us busy. So there hasn't been a need for us to go and look for work elsewhere yet. But not to say we don't want to, or just we're keeping busy. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Because it definitely is going to help a lot with the adoption, and it's very, very important. Do you maybe have any digital material with any courses, or I don't know, webinars that you did or something?
Yeah, what we've been doing since the pandemic started in March, we've been running a free 10-hour, what we call a BIM Coordinators Mentor program. So it's 1 hour a day for 10 days, just where we sharing some of our knowledge and experience from the last with anybody who wants to pursue their sort of business or career, just to understand the different aspects. So that's been very successful. We've had maybe over 2,000 people complete that in the last 6 months.
Where can I find that?
Yeah, I can send you some information on that. So we run them once a month, and as I said, it's just 10 hours a day. It's just covering the basics for people who want to start their journey into digital construction. So we look at, on the first day, why it's important. So coming back to an earlier discussion, I always think it's important that you understand why you're doing something before you try and do it.
Of course.
Yeah. So we discussed the growing need. I think there's a growing need for people who are willing to manage and coordinate BIM. Because if you like, the vision for the European Union is that our towns and our cities become smart, and that the digital built environment becomes digitized. But that means for every building, if you think about your town, your city, for every building in the future, there will be a digital representation, and somebody has to look after that. So it's not going to look after itself. Well, maybe some of it with AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
Maybe some of it will look after itself, but there needs to be a BIM manager or BIM coordinator for every digital version of the towns and cities and infrastructure. And so if you imagine how massive that need for BIM coordinators and BIM managers is, and that's why we started the program, is for people who want to start on that journey, and take responsibility to manage and coordinate BIM. We're offering a few tools and advice. So we
Awesome.
look at on the second day what people need to know. So the skill sets and knowledge sets that people need to know. We look at how somebody does their job under the ISO 19650 standard, either as a BIM manager working for a company, or for BIM manager working for an overall project, or for BIM manager working for clients. We look at how you interact with graphical data, how you interact with the non-graphical data, how you interact with the documents, the common data environment. We touch broadly on model authoring, so the process of making these models, and then model coordination. So those are the sort of topics of the 10 days, and we feel that that gives people a good start to see how would I pursue my career or my business in BIM management or BIM coordination.
Interesting.
Yeah.
May I ask, do you use any tools for this? Are you aware about any tools that might help with this?
Yeah. So there's a number of tools that we cover during this program. Some tools we've developed ourselves, some Excel tools, just to help people put their digital plans of work together and manage their product data sheets, etc. Other tools are tools that are freely available, so like tools for viewing models. I mean, there's lots of tools to view models and engage with models. So we're just demonstrating tools that are freely available and easy to learn, easy to use. And then we do show our particular business uses Revit as a model authoring tool and Navisworks as a coordination tool. So we demonstrate those, but only to show the process. We're not pushing any particular software, because there's lots of software out there, and people should select the software that suits them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We show a lot of tools and other tools like document templates and things in terms of template exchange information requirements, template BIM execution plans, etc. We also present those
as a Word document or in Microsoft Office format, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are some great tools available to do that in a better way. So
yeah,
I suppose in this program we're trying to show an entry point for people where they don't have to invest a lot, but there's fantastic tools already on the market, even for writing BIM execution plans and in a more digital format in a database. So
exactly. Did you use any of this? Can you share? It's allowed to share. And
I think tools like Plannerly and Mortar are two that I can think of immediately that we've been looking at for doing that.
Yeah, I like Plannerly a lot as well. I know lots of people that start using it more and more. It's so intuitive, and you can integrate it. You have the same environment where you work together, work with more people, right?
Yeah, and we had Clive from Plannerly was on one of our podcasts, and
I've seen it. I know.
We had a great discussion about it, because it's the one area that we do feel that people are not spending enough time, is how to plan things. Everybody who just wants to start and do the work.
I know.
But they end up doing the wrong work at the wrong time, and it turns into a mess. So you just want to encourage people to just plan a little bit first, to create a digital plan of work of how you're going to execute this digital build. In the same way as you wouldn't just send builders to site with materials
without
and say,
designing.
go start building. You know how to build. like you would plan how to build something, and if you're going to build the digital version of the building, you have to plan that as well. It's not going to happen by accident.
Exactly. This is a dilemma I have as well. Like it's mind-boggling that we don't understand that. It's like, okay, you need to, in order to build a building, you need to have the design, right? But then you need to have a plan for the design and for the entire process, right?
Yeah,
So it only makes sense.
yeah. And so we're encouraging people. So I mean, we, as part of the course, we offer a free kind of Excel tool just as a starting point, but
Yeah,
people can then go to paid software and databases, etc.
that sounds great. I'm looking forward to get those links from you.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
Do you have maybe published any YouTube videos
We
regarding
do.
not
Yeah,
only the podcast? I mean instructional videos or something. Do you have any like this?
yeah. Well, our company ArcDocs has a YouTube channel, so where we have some certain videos. Some are, we have, for instance, we have a recorded a lecture for project managers, BIM for project managers. So that's on our YouTube channel. We also have, our technical team are posting tips and tricks about, some of the Revit and other things that they're using. So people can go look at our YouTube channel. Um,
Awesome.
yeah,
I'll put that in the show
yeah.
notes.
There's also we're part of the Construction IT Alliance in Ireland. Is a not-for-profit kind of network group, and for the past 10 years, there's been a strong focus on BIM, and we've had great speakers from around the world come to events here, and those have been recorded. So that's also a very good YouTube channel of content. 10 years of different people from around the world coming and speaking about BIM. So I'll send you
Wow.
the link to that as
How?
well.
Yeah, sure. Please
Yeah,
do that. Please include anything you think is relevant and you would like me to include in the show notes.
yeah,
It would be definitely helpful for everybody who's interested to look into it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think I would just encourage people to start on your journey because there's no the digital construction is going to happen. It's happening already. It's not going to stop. Like every digitization of every sector is happening. You've seen it in finance, you've seen it in travel, you've seen it in media. Um, so it's happening in construction, and I'd encourage people to pay attention and start the journey and not be left behind, because at some point in time, an analog way of working is going to be
Replaced.
replaced, and if that's all you can do, you're going to be replaced, which is So I would encourage people not to be comfortable with just knowing how you did something 20 years ago. Look into these things, start the journey. It's not a difficult journey. And it doesn't have to be painful if you do it in the right way. Where it becomes painful if you ignore it, and then
Exactly.
suddenly somebody says to you, "Right, we're going to use BIM on this project," and you're like, "Whoa, hang on," and then you're under pressure, and then that's probably the worst way to get into it when you're under pressure, because you won't learn properly, and you make potentially big mistakes.
Yes.
Um, so yeah.
Is there any other resources you would recommend people who are interested about this to learn more?
I think the UK BIM framework website has some excellent resources, and they guidance on the ISO 19650 standard. I would highly recommend that. They've done a lot of work on all aspects. Also, the Scottish Futures Trust have a fantastic BIM portal with some great tools. So the Scottish Futures Trust um, are doing a little bit of what like France did, where they're looking at public procurement in Scotland and saying, well, instead of expecting each department to figure this out, let's do it together. And so they've created a suite of tools and processes and guidance notes
Yeah.
to help all of public procurement. So those are two I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
But if I think of others, I'll let you know.
Sure. Please include the French study or the French initiative in the links
Yeah,
you are
I
going to
must go
send me.
find it because I didn't actually. The way I heard about that was a
Yeah.
presentation from the group that set it up to the Architects Council of Europe.
Okay.
So I'll see if I can find
Yeah.
some online thing about that. But that's where I heard about it, and
Okay.
it just made so much sense to me when I heard about it. That there's a department of the government that had a challenge, and instead of expecting, you know, each individual architect in the country to figure it out, they did something to help with the industry.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you would like to add here at the end?
Don't think so. I think we've had a good conversation. Um, yeah, I think for me, what I'm thinking about a lot these days is the quality of information, and what is good quality versus poor quality, and the value. So the value of information. I think people still don't have a good appreciation of the value of information, and I think that comes from working 20, 30 years with poor quality information. That it's okay not to have good quality information, but we've seen so many benefits that good quality information can bring that we spend a lot of time sort of explaining to people the difference between poor quality information and good quality information, and we just want to drag the industry towards better quality information.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't get perfect information. That's very difficult, but like we should be aiming towards that. Yeah.
Much better
Yeah.
information we can have. Finally, we have the tools. There are here, right? You said 20, 30 years. I would argue thousands of years. We've been doing things in the same way. We've been drawings. Romans have used drawings, you know? So
Yeah.
Egyptians definitely had some kind of drawings, and it was the best they have had available. Right now, we don't have that excuse anymore. We have the tools. We have everything around us. It's us who need to tap into it and use it.
Yeah. Well, and I think we probably have a generation of people who are scared of technology, and you know, and usually those are senior people in companies, and they don't want to look stupid. So it's better to just continue doing what you know. And yeah, I would say even to that group of people, you can get involved without getting fully involved. Like even if you learn to use a free viewer, for instance, there's some great free viewers out there, and they're really
Exactly.
easy. They're really easy to use, to learn. So if you
Sure.
and if that allowed you as a senior person to open a model and walk around and look around and make some contribution, and even if it's just a comment like
Yeah.
that's not going to work, or that looks like a problem. That's you begin to engage with the process and contribute to the process. We've noticed in a lot of the companies that we work with that there's a portion of people that are digitally divided. They because they're not engaging with technology, they separated from this process, which is unfortunate because they are usually the people who have the experience. And a lot of projects have very young people without experience, sort of having unusual control or management of a project just because they have the technical ability.
Exactly.
So we've got to bring these two groups of people together, and and so that's just encourage people to engage at whatever level you can. Just
Yeah.
get your foot in the door and start, and it will open up so many more possibilities.
It's very important, and let's not forget, let's not be foolish and think that in the today's age, with so much information around us, someone can just know everything. It's impossible, no matter what function do you have in a company. just be honest with yourself. Like, if you cannot know anything, just allow others to do it. To, like, nobody will know everything here, right? It's just like embracing a new way of working. It's about that.
Yeah. I mean, even for some, just the video conferencing has been a challenge in this last 6 months. There's people there who just didn't know how to have a video conference.
Yeah.
Didn't feel comfortable, and but they've been forced to do that now, and I think people are getting used to that. So I think the next step is begin to engage with the BIM process at whatever level you are and get started. It is a journey. For everyone, it's a journey, and it's not an overnight thing.
No, definitely. I completely agree with that. But if you don't do it, then you will be just left behind. I don't see any other way around right now. In the situation we find ourselves right now, I don't see it other way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good. So,
well, Ralph, thank you very much for amazing conversation. I learned a lot. Thank you very much for sharing with me your experience.
thank you for the opportunity to share with your audience, and
it's been a pleasure. I'm sure many will find this very useful and will learn a lot and will become more motivated to do more about this. And keep up the good work you are doing. We need more and more people. You need to be resilient and continue with what you're doing, because it's the only way we are going to prevail at the end.
yeah, will do. And thanks again for your time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.